A janitor and a rock legend unite. Richard Goodall plus Neal Schon stun the world AGT finale. The mop bucket squeaked against the polished marble floor as Richard Goodall pushed it along the dim hallway of a middle school in Terre Haute, Indiana. For years, he had walked these same halls, cleaning up after children's laughter and teenage scuffles, his songs echoing quietly when he thought no one was listening. Richard loved singing. It was the one thing that made him feel alive after long shifts of unseen, thankless work. But to most, he was just the janitor. One spring evening, during a school talent show, Richard was coaxed onto the stage by students who had overheard him humming "Don't Stop Believin" while sweeping. Nervous, gripping the microphone like it might slip away, he opened his mouth, and the gymnasium froze. His voice carried not only the melody of the iconic song but years of heartache, endurance, and quiet hope. Parents wept. Children stood and clapped. For the first time, Richard wasn't just the man with a mop. He was a singer. Word spread, and soon, a local video went viral. People around the country watched the janitor with the voice of a rock star, and America's Got Talent reached out. Richard hesitated. Wasn't he too old, too ordinary? But something inside whispered that life gives us windows, and you must step through when they open. So, trembling but resolute, he packed his bags and went to audition. When Richard walked onto the AGT stage, the bright lights felt blinding, the judges towering. He introduced himself simply, "My name is Richard Goodall, I'm a janitor from Indiana." Chuckles rippled across the audience, but when he began to sing, silence fell. His rendition of "Don't Stop Believin" soared with sincerity, reminding everyone why the song mattered. By the final note, the audience was on its feet, tears shining, hearts stirred. Richard advanced round after round, always humble, always astonished he had made it this far. But no one, not even Richard, expected what would happen in the finale. The producers had arranged a surprise. As the crowd buzzed and cameras rolled, the stage lights dimmed. Richard began to sing, his voice strong yet trembling with emotion. Then, a single spotlight revealed a figure stepping onto the stage, Neal Schon, the legendary guitarist of Journey, the man who had helped write the very anthem Richard had carried in his soul for decades. The audience gasped. Richard nearly dropped the microphone. Neal placed a hand on Richard's shoulder and whispered, "Let's do this together." The band kicked in, and for the first time in his life, Richard wasn't singing alone, he was standing shoulder to shoulder with the rock legend who had unknowingly given him hope during lonely nights of mopping hallways. As the guitar solo wailed, Richard poured everything he had into the chorus. The cameras captured the tears on his cheeks, the disbelief in his eyes, the joy radiating through his voice. The crowd roared, waving their hands, some hugging strangers beside them. It wasn't just a performance, it was a story of how ordinary lives can collide with extraordinary moments. After the final note, the entire arena erupted. Judges were speechless. Simon Cowell, usually guarded, stood with tears in his eyes. "Richard," he said, "you just reminded the world what this show is about. Hope. Dreams. Humanity. Tonight wasn't about a janitor or a rock legend. It was about the belief that it's never too late." Backstage, Neal Schon hugged Richard tightly. "You reminded me why we wrote that song," Neal admitted. "It wasn't about fame, it was about giving people the courage to keep going. Tonight, you gave that back to me." For Richard, those words meant more than any trophy. He didn't win AGT that night, but what he gained was greater, the validation that his voice, his heart, and his journey mattered. He had become a symbol of resilience, proving that even a man who spent decades sweeping floors could rise to stand in the spotlight, touching millions. Weeks later, Richard returned to his hometown. The school children greeted him with handmade posters that read, "Our janitor, our hero." Parents shook his hand. Neighbors who had once overlooked him now saw him as someone extraordinary. But Richard remained humble, still singing in church, still pausing to encourage others chasing late-blooming dreams. The world would remember that AGT finale not as a spectacle, but as a reminder that kindness, courage, and belief can bridge the distance between ordinary and extraordinary. Richard Goodall taught us that our worth isn't measured by the job title we carry, but by the passion we hold and the love we share. And somewhere in those echoes of applause, beneath the blazing lights and the thunder of Neal Schon's guitar, one message rang louder than any note: it's never too late to believe in yourself. And when you do, the world just might believe with you.